In the previous step, we got our user entity set up and we were able to see the details in H2 console. In this step, let's focus on creating a user repository. We would want user resource to be talking to a database. And the way user resource can talk to the database is through user repository. So let's create a user repository right now. So what I'll do is I'll go in here, create a new interface. I'll call this user repository. So the user repository extends JPA repository. So let's maximize. So we want to extend the JPA repository interface, and what is the thing that what is the entity that this specific thing would manage? This would manage the user entity. And what is the type of the ID field? The type of the ID field is integer. So let's save this. Let's organize imports. We would want to import com in 28 minutes REST web services, RESTful web services .user. This is the one which you would want to import in. You can see the import in here, and now I can save this. So our repository class is now ready. One thing I don't really like is the fact that I've created it directly in REST web services package. So what I'll do is I'll actually change the package name to .jpa and do a control-1 and move this class to that specific package. So let's save this. Now the user repository is in the JPA package. Oops, this does not look good. Let's do a refresh. Yep, the JPA package contains the user repository interface right now. And now I want to make use of user repository in the user resource and talk to the database. What I'll do is I'll create a copy of the user resource. So instead of directly modifying user resource, what I would do is I would copy user resource and I would create it right here, paste it, and I'll call this user JPA resource. So we are creating a copy of the user resource so that we can play with it using JPA. So let's paste it in. There would be a few errors which would come up. There'd be a lot of errors that you would see in the console because of ambiguous mappings. What is ambiguous mapping? If you look at user resource and the user JPA resource, we have methods mapped with the same URL, and that's not good. So what I'll do is I'll go to the user JPA resource and change all of these to use /JPA /users URL. So /JPA /users /ID /JPA /users /ID in here as well, and even for the create user. So we have mapped in a different URL /JPA /users, and now you should see the application start up fine. That looks good. So we have our JPA user resource or the user JPA resource ready. And in the user JPA resource, what I would want to do is I would want to use the user repository. I don't want to use the service, but I would want to use the repository. So user repository, and I would say repository. Let's organize imports. Let's see what's imported in. You should see com in 28 minutes, REST web services, RESTful web services, JPA, user repository imported in. That's good. And we would want to make use of the user repository. So what I'll do is I'll add it to the constructor which is present in here. Right now, there are a lot of methods in here, and they are all making use of user DAO service. So what we will do in the intermediate period is to have some of the methods talk to user repository, some of the methods talk to user DAO service. And slowly, we'll switch all the methods which are talking to the user DAO service to talk to user repository. So what I'll do now is user repository, and we'll say this dot repository is equal to repository. So the user repository would now be wired in. Let's now upgrade our first service to make use of the database. The easiest one is the retrieve all user service. So over here, instead of the service.findAll, what I'll do is I'll say repository.findAll. Let's see what would happen now. Let's go to localhost users. This would return the hard-coded users. If I would want to talk to the database, I would need to say localhost /JPA /users. Oops, I'm getting an error. It says no default constructor for entity user. So let's go over to user class. We are making use of JPA in here, and we would need a default constructor. So protected user empty constructor is more than sufficient. And let's do a refresh. And you should be seeing the details that are coming back. So the first task is done. Our retrieve all users is talking to database. Let's now go on to the next one. Let's look at the retrieve user. So over here we are making use of service.findOne. What I'll do is change it to repository. Inside the repository, there is no method called find one. It's actually find by ID. So if I change it to find by ID, you would see that this would return an optional of user back. So let's change the type of user to optional of user. So this becomes optional of user. And now what we can do to check if nothing is returned is, instead of doing user is equal to null, we can do user dot. You can check user dot is empty. If user is empty, we'll throw a user not found exception. To get the user object from optional, I can do user dot get. So there are simple changes that we are making in here. We are making use of find by ID method. We are making use of user dot is empty to check if there are no users with that specific ID. If that's the case, then we are throwing a user not found exception. Otherwise, we are doing a user dot get to get the user and create the entity model as usual. So let's go ahead and execute users/1. Oops, getting an error. Why? Because we don't have a user with the ID 1. The ID of the user is 10,001. So let's actually go in and type in 10,001. And now you should see the right response come back. In this step, we created the user repository and we made use of user repository in a couple of REST API. Let's now switch our attention to delete user method. It should be pretty easy. So all that I need to do is to change it to repository. Repository.delete by ID. I think that's the only change that we needed to make. And over here, let's execute it. Let's now go in here and execute that. So I'll do a delete on 10,001. So that's what we want to do. And let's do a send. No content is returned back. And if I go ahead and go to the user's URL, you can see that 10,002 and 10,003 are the only ones which are present. The 10,001 is deleted. That looks good. The last one we would want to update is this one. So repository.save. So this would actually create a new user. So let's actually go ahead and do a post. And we would want to do a post to JPA/users. So that's URL localhost 80/JPA/users. And I would want to create Ravi v2. You can assign a birth date as well. And the content type is application-JSON. I don't need these two headers, so I'll remove them out. So content type application-JSON. I have the body name Ravi v2, and I have assigned a birth date as well. So if you look at the earlier post request which we have sent a post request to localhost 80/JPA users, and we are using the attribute name and the birth date as this value. One of the things that we have done in the earlier steps is we added the @JSON property annotation in here. We added @JSON property annotation with user_name and birth_date. And therefore, we have two options. Either I can use user_name and birth date in here to send the post request, or I can comment the JSON properties. So what I'll do right now is I'll comment the JSON properties out. So I'll comment these values out. So the application would restart. And when I refresh this, I should see the old values, name, birth date in here. So that looks good. And now I can go to Talend API Tester and use the same old body. So post to localhost 80/JPA users, content type is application/JSON, name is Ravi v2, and the birth date is 1997/08/11. Let's go ahead and say send 201. And let's do a refresh. Cool. So we have a new user, Ravi V2, with this specific birth date. In this step, we completely switched over the user JPA resource to user repository. We are no longer using user DAO service. So let's remove this out, and let's remove this user DAO service from here as well, and from here as well, and save this out. And you would see that the application would start up fine and everything would compile. I'm sure you're having a wonderful time, and I'll see you in the next step.